At dawn, the strange footprints around our tents confirmed our worst fears. We were not alone in the haunted campground. My friends and I had planned a summer weekend getaway at a picturesque campground in the mountains. The place was serene, with a crystal-clear lake and numerous trails perfect for exploration. We were eager to escape our hectic lives and enjoy the tranquility of nature. My name is Mark, and I've always loved camping. The idea of spending a weekend in the mountains with my friends was exciting. Little did we know, our adventure would turn into a nightmare. On our first night, we gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. The air was filled with laughter and the crackling of the fire. As the night wore on, we started hearing strange noises coming from the forest. At first, we dismissed the sounds as animals moving through the underbrush. However, the noises grew louder and seemed to circle our campsite, creating an uneasy feeling. It was as if someone or something was watching us from the darkness. We tried to ignore it, but the persistent rustling and occasional snapping of twigs became impossible to disregard. The atmosphere grew tense, and our conversations dwindled as we strained to listen for any signs of movement. One of my friends, Jack, decided he would investigate the source of the noises. Armed with a flashlight, he ventured into the forest, assuring us he'd be back soon. Minutes turned into an hour, and Jack still hadn't returned. Our initial concern turned into outright panic. We grabbed our flashlights and set out to find him, calling his name and searching the area where he had disappeared. The forest was eerily silent, and the only sound was the crunching of leaves beneath our feet. Our shouts echoed through the trees with no response. Eventually, we found Jack sitting on the ground, his eyes wide with terror. He was shaking and mumbling incoherently about a shadowy figure he had seen among the trees. He couldn't describe it in detail, only that it felt malevolent and had been watching him. We helped Jack back to the campsite, trying to comfort him as best we could. The night felt heavier with a sense of impending dread. We decided to call it a night, hoping sleep would bring some respite. But that night, we were all plagued by horrible nightmares. In my dream, I saw the shadowy figure Jack had described. It moved silently through the forest, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. I felt paralyzed, unable to move or scream as it approached. I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. The others had similar nightmares, each recounting a presence that loomed over them, whispering unintelligible words. We were all visibly shaken, and it was clear that none of us had slept well. The fear from our dreams lingered as the morning light began to filter through the trees. At dawn, we emerged from our tents to find strange footprints around our campsite. They were unlike any animal tracks we had ever seen. Large, misshapen prints that seemed to appear and disappear without a clear pattern. The realization that something had been close to us while we slept sent chills down our spines. We quickly packed up our gear, our sense of urgency growing with each passing moment. The footprints circled our tents and led off into the forest. The morning light did little to alleviate our fear. Instead, it highlighted the stark reality of the situation. We had been visited by something during the night. The mood was somber as we prepared to leave. The fear and confusion from the night before were compounded by the inexplicable footprints. We felt a deep unease, as if we were being watched even in the daylight. As we loaded the last of our gear into the car, we couldn't shake the feeling that the shadowy figure was still out there, hidden among the trees. The experience had left us deeply rattled, and we knew we had to get away from the campground as quickly as possible. The drive back was filled with nervous glances and hushed conversations about what we had encountered. We decided unanimously to leave the campground immediately. The beauty of the place had been overshadowed by the terror we had experienced. We loaded our gear into the car, casting nervous glances back at the forest. The sense of relief was palpable as we started the car and began the journey back home. However, the lingering fear that something was following us persisted. As we drove away, the sense of relief was mixed with lingering dread. We couldn't shake the feeling that the shadowy figure was still watching us, hidden among the trees. The journey back was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts, replaying the events of the night over and over in our minds. The fear of encountering the figure again was too great, and we couldn't wait to put distance between ourselves and the campground. Once we reached home, we shared our experience with family and friends. Some were skeptical, but the fear in our eyes convinced them we had encountered something beyond explanation. The memory of that night became a haunting reminder of the unknown lurking in the wilderness. The beauty of the campground was forever marred by the terror we had faced, and we knew we would never return. The experience left us all deeply affected. Jack, who had seen the figure up close, was the most impacted. He struggled with nightmares and anxiety, constantly looking over his shoulder as if expecting the shadowy presence to reappear. His once cheerful demeanor was replaced by a constant state of vigilance and unease. The rest of us also found it hard to move past the events of that night. We all vowed never to return to that campground. The fear of encountering the figure again was too great. Our love for camping was tainted by the terror we had faced, and we became more cautious about where we chose to set up camp. We did extensive research on any new locations, ensuring they didn't have any strange histories or unexplained phenomena associated with them. The story of our haunted campground trip spread among our friends and family, serving as a cautionary tale. It was a reminder that even the most beautiful places could harbor dark secrets and that some mysteries were better left unexplored. Our experience became a legend within our circle, a story told with a mix of fear and fascination, serving as a warning to others. Even years later, the memory of that night haunted us. The nightmares became less frequent, but the fear remained. We found ourselves avoiding conversations about the incident, as if speaking about it would summon the shadowy figure back into our lives. The experience had left a permanent mark on us, and we struggled to move on from the trauma we had endured. The experience had bonded us in an unspoken way. We understood the fear and the trauma, and we supported each other through the lingering effects. We became more protective of one another, always ensuring no one ventured into potentially dangerous situations alone. The haunted campground became a symbol of our shared fear, a place we avoided at all costs. It was a reminder that the unknown was always lurking, waiting to be discovered by the unwary. The shadowy figure and the strange footprints were a constant presence in our minds, a reminder of the night we had faced something beyond our understanding. The experience had changed us, making us more cautious and wary of the world around us. Despite our efforts to move on, the mystery of the shadowy figure remained unsolved. We often wondered what it was and why it had appeared to us. The questions lingered in our minds, adding to the sense of unease that had become a part of our lives. We sought answers but found none, leaving us to grapple with the unknown. We occasionally heard stories of other campers who had experienced strange occurrences at the same campground. Each tale added a new layer to the mystery, but no one could provide a definitive answer. The shadowy figure remained an enigma, a haunting presence in our memories. The campground had become a place of legend, its dark history growing with each new story. The haunted campground became a legend among our circle, a story we told with a mix of fear and fascination. It served as a reminder of the thin line between reality and the supernatural and the lasting impact that a single night of terror could have on our lives. We learned to live with the fear and uncertainty, accepting that some things may never be explained. Need to catch your breath? Too bad. The next fright is just around the corner. Subscribe and let us know in the comments how scared you are. Story 2. The abandoned hotel's whispers and ghostly apparitions left us running for our lives, but its dark secrets followed us long after we escaped. During a summer road trip, my family and I decided to stay at an old, isolated hotel we stumbled upon. The place had a rustic charm, with its creaky wooden floors and antique furnishings, but something felt off from the start. My name is Sarah, and I've always been fascinated by old buildings. The hotel seemed like a perfect place to spend the night, but little did we know, it would turn into a nightmare. On the first night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps echoing through the hallway. The distinct thump of each step seemed to reverberate through the old wooden floors, sending chills down my spine. I initially thought it was one of my family members, but a quick check revealed they were all sound asleep. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, the creaks of the floorboards matching the rapid beat of my heart. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the sporadic creaks and groans of the old building. I called out softly, but my voice seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. The footsteps suddenly stopped, leaving me standing in the eerie quiet, feeling more alone than ever. I quickly retreated to my room, trying to rationalize the noise as just the old building settling. But as I lay in bed, the feeling of being watched lingered, and sleep became an elusive comfort. The darkness seemed to press in around me, amplifying every tiny sound, and I found myself glancing repeatedly at the door, expecting someone or something to appear. The next day, over breakfast, we chatted with the hotel owner, an elderly man with a mysterious air. He casually mentioned that the hotel had been officially closed for years, yet he still allowed some travelers to stay. His nonchalant attitude towards the hotel's closure only heightened our suspicions. As we explored the hotel, we noticed signs of neglect: peeling wallpaper, dusty furniture, and cobwebs in the corners. It was clear that the hotel had seen better days. Despite this, there was an undeniable allure to the place, as if it held onto secrets from its past. Our curiosity was piqued, but so was our apprehension. We began to question the wisdom of our decision to stay there. The owner's cryptic comments and the state of the hotel made us uneasy, but we decided to stay one more night, hoping our fears were unfounded. On the second night, I woke up again, this time to whispers and low laughter. The sounds were faint but unmistakable, drifting through the air like a chilling breeze. I sat up in bed, straining to hear more clearly. The whispers grew louder, mingling with eerie laughter, creating an unsettling symphony of the supernatural. I got out of bed and cautiously approached the window. Drawing back the curtain, I saw a pale, translucent figure walking through the garden. The figure moved gracefully, almost floating above the ground. It was dressed in old-fashioned clothing, and its features were barely discernible in the moonlight. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched the ghostly apparition disappear into the darkness. Panic set in as I hurried to wake my parents, telling them what I had seen. They looked at me with concern but were skeptical. The experience left us all on edge, and we decided to leave the hotel the next morning, unable to ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled over us. The next morning, as we were packing up to leave, the hotel owner approached us with an unsettling calmness. He mentioned that the place was known to be haunted by the spirits of former guests who had mysteriously disappeared over the years. His casual tone as he recounted these stories sent chills down our spines. He described several eerie tales, detailing how guests had vanished without a trace, leaving behind their belongings and unanswered questions. The owner spoke of ghostly apparitions seen wandering the halls and garden, much like the figure I had seen the previous night. His stories confirmed our worst fears, making the decision to leave seem even more urgent. We listened in stunned silence, the weight of his words settling over us like a dark cloud. The owner's nonchalance contrasted sharply with the terror we felt. We thanked him hastily, loaded our bags into the car, and drove away, desperate to put as much distance as possible between ourselves and the haunted hotel. As we drove away from the hotel, the tension in the car was palpable. We exchanged nervous glances, each of us lost in our thoughts about the strange events we had experienced. The stories of the vanished guests and the ghostly figure weighed heavily on our minds. My parents tried to reassure me, saying that we had made the right decision to leave. But the fear lingered, and every shadow along the road seemed to take on a sinister shape. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, even as we left the hotel far behind. The drive was silent except for the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. The beauty of the summer day contrasted sharply with the darkness of our recent experience. We were all eager to reach the safety of home and put the haunting memories behind us. The experience at the abandoned hotel left a deep mark on all of us. My fascination with old buildings was replaced by a wariness of their hidden secrets. I found it hard to sleep for weeks, haunted by nightmares of the ghostly figure and the whispers in the night. My parents were equally affected. They became more cautious in their travel choices, avoiding isolated or rundown places. The sense of adventure we once had was tainted by the fear of encountering the unknown. Our road trips were now meticulously planned, with thorough research on every destination. The story of the abandoned hotel became a cautionary tale we shared with friends and family. It served as a reminder of the thin veil between the ordinary and the supernatural. We learned to respect the unexplained and to trust our instincts when something felt off. Even years later, the memory of the abandoned hotel haunted us. The fear of encountering another ghostly presence lingered in the back of our minds. We avoided conversations about the incident, as if speaking about it would summon the spirits back into our lives. The bond between my family and me grew stronger as we supported each other through the lingering effects of our experience. We became more protective of one another, always ensuring no one ventured into potentially dangerous situations alone. The haunted hotel became a symbol of our shared fear, a place we avoided at all costs. The incident had a lasting impact on our perception of the world. We were more cautious and aware of the potential for the supernatural to intrude into our lives. The fear of the unknown was a constant presence, shaping our decisions and actions in subtle but significant ways. Despite our efforts to move on, the mystery of the abandoned hotel remained unsolved. We often wondered about the spirits that haunted the place and the fate of the guests who had disappeared. The questions lingered in our minds, adding to the sense of unease that had become a part of our lives. We occasionally heard stories of other travelers who had experienced strange occurrences at the hotel. Each tale added a new layer to the mystery, but no one could provide a definitive answer. The ghostly figure and the whispers were a constant presence in our minds, a reminder of the night we had faced something beyond our understanding. The abandoned hotel became a legend among our circle, a story we told with a mix of fear and fascination. It served as a reminder of the thin line between reality and the supernatural and the lasting impact that a single night of terror could have on our lives. We learned to live with the fear and uncertainty, accepting that some mysteries may never be explained. Ready for another dose of fear? Stay tuned for the next terrifying story. Subscribe and tell us which story scared you the most. Story 3. The empty water park's eerie silence and ghostly encounters left us fleeing in fear, but the haunting memories followed us long after we escaped. During the summer holidays, my family and I decided to visit a famous water park known for its thrilling attractions. My name is Jake, and I've always had a deep love for water parks. The excitement of racing down water slides and splashing in wave pools was something I looked forward to every summer. This particular trip seemed like it would be perfect, as we had heard great things about this park. We arrived early, eager to make the most of our day. The park was almost empty, which seemed like a stroke of luck. We imagined having the whole place to ourselves. No long lines, no crowded pools, just pure, uninterrupted fun. Little did we know that this seemingly ideal situation would quickly turn into a terrifying ordeal. As we explored the various pools and slides, it became increasingly apparent that we were the only visitors. The usual laughter and chatter of families enjoying their day were absent, replaced by an unsettling silence. The vast, empty park, which initially seemed like a stroke of luck, started to feel ominous. The staff's behavior added to the unease. They moved mechanically, their smiles seemed forced, and their eyes were vacant. Every interaction felt off, as if they were hiding something. My parents brushed it off as a bad day at work for the staff, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The pristine, empty pools and echoing silence made the park feel more like a ghost town than a place of fun. Despite the strangeness, we tried to enjoy ourselves, going from slide to slide, but the eerie atmosphere lingered. The park's emptiness and the odd behavior of the staff weighed heavily on all of us, turning what should have been a day of joy into one of growing unease. While waiting in line for one of the more secluded water slides, I heard a sound that sent a chill down my spine. Heavy breathing, just behind me. I turned quickly but saw nothing. The air felt thicker, and my heart raced as I scanned the shadows for any sign of movement. Just as I was about to dismiss it as my imagination, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness. Its outline was barely visible, but the presence was unmistakable. I tried to warn my family, but the figure disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. My parents looked at me with concern, but not enough to convince them that something was seriously amiss. We decided to continue with our day, but I couldn't shake the image of the shadowy figure from my mind. Every creak and rustle seemed amplified, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder. The once exciting water park now felt like a labyrinth of fear, with each corner potentially hiding another encounter with the unknown. Despite my growing anxiety, we continued to explore the park, hoping to salvage some enjoyment from the day. We entered another attraction, a twisting, dark tunnel slide that promised an exhilarating ride. As we climbed the stairs, the feeling of being watched intensified, making my skin crawl. Halfway up, I saw the shadowy figure again, this time closer and more defined. It was standing at the bottom of the slide, its dark form contrasting sharply with the bright colors of the park. The figure's presence was more menacing, and the air around it seemed to grow colder. I tried to point it out to my family, but by the time they looked, the figure had vanished once more. The fear was palpable now, and we decided to leave the slide and head back to the main area. However, the shadowy figure's presence seemed to follow us, always just out of sight. The joy of the water park was completely overshadowed by the growing sense of dread. We were no longer there to have fun. We were simply trying to escape the unseen terror that stalked us. As we made our way back to the main area, we decided to leave the park earlier than planned. The sense of dread was overwhelming, and we just wanted to get out of there. However, on our way out, we encountered the shadowy figure one last time. It appeared directly in our path, blocking our way to the exit. This time, the figure was more defined, with dark, tattered clothing and empty, hollow eyes. It stood motionless, staring directly at us. The air around it was freezing, and a deep sense of malevolence radiated from its presence. We were frozen in place, paralyzed by fear. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to muster the courage to move. Finally, the figure began to move toward us, its steps slow and deliberate. The oppressive feeling of dread intensified, and my family and I turned and ran, our only thought being to escape. We didn't stop until we reached the parking lot, the figure still fresh in our minds. It felt as though we had narrowly escaped something truly sinister. We piled into the car, breathless and terrified. As we sped away from the park, we tried to make sense of what had happened. The shadowy figure, the eerie silence, the strange behavior of the staff. It all pointed to something far beyond our understanding. Our relief at leaving the park was mixed with a lingering fear that stayed with us. Later, we learned that the water park had been facing financial problems and had laid off many employees. However, that didn't explain the figure we had seen or the chilling experiences we had endured. Reports of mysterious disappearances at the park began to surface, adding to the mystery and our terror. The park was eventually closed permanently, deemed unsafe, and haunted by those who had experienced similar encounters. The story of our visit became a chilling tale we shared with friends and family, each retelling filled with the same sense of unease and fear. The experience at the water park left us deeply shaken. Nights were filled with nightmares of the shadowy figure, and the sense of dread lingered long after we had returned home. My family and I grew closer, supporting each other through the shared fear that haunted us. The memory of that day was a constant reminder of the thin line between fun and terror. Every time we planned a trip, the memory of the deserted water park surfaced, casting a shadow over our excitement. We avoided water parks during the off-season, fearful of encountering similar experiences. The once enjoyable activity had been tainted by the horror we had faced. Our story spread among friends and relatives, becoming a cautionary tale about the haunted water park. The fear was not just of the shadowy figure, but of the unknown forces that seemed to lurk in places meant for joy and relaxation. The park's closure did little to ease our minds. The haunting memories stayed with us. Despite the passing of time, we remained haunted by the unanswered questions about the shadowy figure and the park's dark history. We often wondered if others had experienced similar encounters, or if we were somehow singled out. The mystery of the deserted water park became a topic of local legend, discussed in hushed tones by those who dared to listen. We were left to ponder the origins of the figure and the true nature of the park's haunting. Was it the result of a tragic event, or something more sinister that had taken hold of the place? The lack of answers only fueled our fear, making the experience even more chilling. The shadowy figure's appearance in our dreams continued, a reminder of the terror we had faced. Each nightmare brought with it a sense of helplessness and fear, a feeling that we could never truly escape the horror of that day. The lingering questions added to the haunting, making it impossible to forget. Reflecting on the experience, we realized how it had changed our perspective on thrill-seeking and adventure. What was supposed to be a fun day at a water park had turned into a nightmare that left us scarred. We became more cautious, always looking for signs of danger in places meant for enjoyment. The experience also brought our family closer together. We supported each other through the fear and helped one another cope with the lingering terror. The haunted water park remained a chilling memory, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of life and the unseen forces that can turn joy into fear. In the end, the deserted water park became a symbol of our collective fear, a story we shared to remind ourselves of the fragility of our safety. The haunted memories served as a constant warning, urging us to be vigilant and aware, even in the most unexpected places. Prepare yourself. The fear continues with our next haunting narrative. Subscribe and let us know in the comments what keeps you up at night. Story 4. The summer beach house seemed perfect until the night whispers and shadowy figures revealed a haunting past that left us fleeing in terror. My name is Emily, and I had been eagerly anticipating our family summer vacation. We decided to rent a beach house to enjoy the sun, sand, and sea. The house was everything we had hoped for: spacious, comfortable, and right by the beach. It had large windows that let in the ocean breeze and a beautiful patio where we could relax and watch the waves. From the moment we arrived, I felt a strange sense of unease, but I dismissed it as excitement and fatigue from the trip. The beach setting was idyllic, and I couldn't wait to spend time with my family in such a serene environment. Little did I know that this beautiful house held a dark secret that would turn our dream vacation into a nightmare. On the first night, I woke up to the sound of doors banging and footsteps upstairs. The noise was loud and sudden, jolting me awake from a deep sleep. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding, and strained to hear any other sounds. The house was silent again, but the unsettling feeling lingered. I decided to investigate, thinking it might be one of my family members. I checked the hallway and the rooms upstairs, but found no one. The doors were all closed, and there were no signs of anyone having been there. Confused and a little frightened, I returned to bed, trying to convince myself that it was just the wind or the house settling. The eerie silence that followed the disturbances made it difficult to fall back asleep. Every creak and groan of the old house seemed amplified, adding to my growing sense of unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, and I lay awake for hours, listening for any other sounds. Over the following days, the paranormal activities in the house increased. It started with small things, like objects moving on their own. One morning, I found a chair that had been pushed away from the dining table, even though no one had been in the room. At night, we would hear faint whispers echoing through the halls, just loud enough to be unsettling but too soft to understand. The most disturbing occurrences were the shadows. We would see dark shapes moving across the rooms, always just at the edge of our vision. At first, we tried to explain it away as tricks of the light, but the shadows grew bolder, lingering longer and moving more deliberately. The atmosphere in the house became charged with a constant sense of dread. Each night, the voices grew louder and the shadows became more active. The house felt alive with a malevolent energy that kept us on edge. The once beautiful beach house had turned into a place of fear, where every moment was filled with anxiety and tension. One evening, my younger sister began talking about a friend she had been seeing at night. She described this friend as a girl with long, dark hair who would appear in her room and talk to her. At first, we thought she was just making up stories, but the details she provided were too specific and consistent to ignore. She told us that the girl would sit at the foot of her bed, whispering things that she couldn't quite understand. My sister wasn't frightened by the girl. In fact, she seemed to find comfort in her presence. This disturbed us even more, as we couldn't understand how she could be so calm about something so strange. Alarmed by her stories, we decided to investigate her room. We found nothing out of the ordinary, but the eerie feeling persisted. The idea that our sister was being visited by a ghostly presence was terrifying. It added a new layer of fear to our stay, making us even more desperate to understand what was happening in the house. As the disturbances continued, we decided to confront the owner about the strange occurrences. We hoped he could offer some explanation or reassurance. When we called him, his initial reaction was one of discomfort. He hesitated before telling us that a young woman had died in the house years ago. Her presence, he admitted, had been felt by many previous guests. His revelation confirmed our worst fears. The owner explained that the young woman had met a tragic end and that her spirit seemed unable to leave the house. He mentioned that other guests had reported similar experiences: the noises, the shadows, and even sightings of the young woman. His casual acceptance of these hauntings was unnerving. Our confrontation with the owner left us even more frightened. Knowing that the house was haunted by a restless spirit made every noise and shadow even more terrifying. We realized that we couldn't stay in the house any longer. The sense of dread was overwhelming, and we began planning our departure. The disturbances reached a climax on the final night. We decided to leave the next morning, but the house seemed to sense our decision. As darkness fell, the activity in the house intensified. Doors slammed shut with violent force, and the whispers became loud, almost deafening. Shadows moved rapidly through the rooms, creating an atmosphere of chaos and fear. We huddled together in the living room, too terrified to separate. The air grew colder, and we could see our breath misting in front of us. The sense of a malevolent presence was palpable. My sister's friend appeared again, this time more clearly. The girl with the dark hair stood at the edge of the room, her eyes locked on us. The night seemed endless. Every minute was filled with terror as we waited for dawn. The house felt alive with a dark energy, as if it were trying to force us out. When the first light of dawn finally broke through the windows, we felt a wave of relief. We knew we had to leave immediately. At the first light of dawn, we hastily packed our belongings. The house, which had seemed so charming and serene upon our arrival, now felt like a prison. We could hear the whispers and see the shadows even as we gathered our things. The sense of urgency was overwhelming, and we didn't want to spend another minute in the haunted house. We loaded the car and drove away, leaving the beach house behind us. The relief of escaping was mixed with lingering fear and unanswered questions. We couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching us as we left. The drive to the hotel was tense, but we finally felt safe once we were away from the house. Arriving at the hotel, we took a collective breath of relief. The contrast between the hotel's normalcy and the haunted beach house was stark. We checked into our rooms, determined to put the terrifying experience behind us. But the memory of the beach house and its restless spirit lingered in our minds. In the days that followed, we reflected on the haunting experience and its impact on our family. The constant feeling of being watched and the unexplained phenomena haunted our memories. We couldn't stop thinking about the young woman who had died in the house and the lingering presence she left behind. The experience changed our perspective on renting old houses for vacations. We became more cautious, always researching the history of a property before booking. The fear of encountering another haunted house was always in the back of our minds. The once enjoyable idea of staying in a charming old house was now tainted by our terrifying experience. We shared our story with friends and family, warning them to be careful when choosing vacation rentals. The haunted beach house became a chilling tale we recounted, each retelling filled with the same sense of unease and fear. The experience had left a lasting impact on us, one that we would never forget. The family remains cautious about renting old houses, preferring modern accommodations. The memory of the haunted beach house has left a deep impression on us, shaping our future vacation plans. We avoid properties with a dark history, seeking out newer places where the past is less likely to intrude. I continue to have nightmares about the beach house and the ghostly presence. Each dream brings back the fear and anxiety we felt during our stay. The image of the young woman with the dark hair haunts my sleep, a reminder of the terrifying summer we spent in that house. Our story of the beach house has become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead. The haunting memories serve as a constant warning, urging us to be vigilant and aware, even in the most seemingly idyllic places. The experience has taught us to respect the unknown and to always be cautious when stepping into a place with a history we don't fully understand. If you thought that was terrifying, just wait. The next story is even more chilling. Subscribe now and leave a comment if you're brave enough. A summer festival turns sinister when an eerie fortune teller's warning comes true, and a hooded figure follows us home, leaving us with nightmares and mysterious scratch marks. Every year, my town holds a grand summer festival, a tradition that brings the entire community together for a night of celebration. My friends and I had been looking forward to it for months. The festival was known for its vibrant atmosphere, filled with lively music, colorful stalls, and mouth-watering food. As the sun set, the lights of the festival illuminated the town square, creating a magical ambience that we eagerly immersed ourselves in. The air was filled with laughter and the cheerful sounds of people enjoying themselves. My friends and I wandered from stall to stall, playing games and sampling different treats. The energy was infectious, and for a while, it felt like nothing could dampen our spirits. Little did we know, the night was about to take a dark and eerie turn that would leave us with memories we'd rather forget. As we continued to explore, we noticed a peculiar tent tucked away at the edge of the festival grounds. It was adorned with strange symbols that seemed out of place among the cheerful decorations. An old man, with a weathered face and piercing eyes, stood outside, beckoning people to come in for spiritual readings. Intrigued by the mysterious allure of the tent, we decided to satisfy our curiosity and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit by flickering candles, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The old man welcomed us with a cryptic smile, his eyes glinting with a knowledge that seemed to penetrate our very souls. As he began his readings, we were taken aback by the accuracy of his words. He spoke of secrets and fears that we had never shared with anyone. Then, his tone shifted, and he warned us of imminent danger, saying that someone was following us. A chill ran down our spines, and we left the tent, feeling more unsettled than ever. Leaving the tent, we saw a hooded figure standing at the edge of the festival grounds, partially hidden in the shadows. The figure seemed to be watching us intently, its presence sending waves of unease through our group. We tried to ignore it, attributing our anxiety to the fortune teller's ominous words. But as we moved through the festival, the figure appeared to be following us, always maintaining a slight distance. The oppressive atmosphere grew heavier, and the once joyous festival now felt like a labyrinth of dread. The figure's persistence was unnerving. Every time we thought we had lost it, we would spot it again, lurking in the background. The realization that we were being watched cast a dark shadow over the evening, making us all jumpy and paranoid. The decision to leave the festival early was unanimous. The fun and excitement had been thoroughly replaced by fear and anxiety. We made our way to the exit, trying to remain calm but constantly glancing over our shoulders. The hooded figure's presence was a constant, oppressive weight, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we were in danger. The festival's lively music and laughter faded into the background as our focus shifted solely to escaping the mysterious stalker. As we walked home, the figure continued to follow us. It would disappear momentarily, only to reappear closer, heightening our sense of panic. The journey, which should have been short and familiar, felt like an endless nightmare. We quickened our pace, hearts pounding, until we finally reached the safety of our homes. But even then, the feeling of being watched didn't go away. That night, each of us had terrifying nightmares about the hooded figure, and the next morning, we found something that confirmed our worst fears. That night, sleep did not bring the rest we hoped for. Each of us was plagued by vivid, horrifying nightmares that felt disturbingly real. In my dream, the hooded figure stood at the foot of my bed, its face obscured but its presence menacing. It reached out with a skeletal hand, and I felt an icy grip around my throat, choking the breath out of me. I woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, and the room felt suffocatingly silent. My friends described similar experiences the next morning. One dreamt of being chased through a dark forest by the figure, feeling its cold breath on their neck with every step. Another saw it standing in a graveyard, pointing to an open grave with their name on the headstone. Each nightmare was unique, but carried the same theme of relentless pursuit and imminent danger. The terror from our dreams lingered, making it hard to distinguish reality from the surreal horror we had all experienced. The morning brought little comfort. As we gathered to discuss our unsettling dreams, we noticed something even more disturbing. Deep scratch marks adorned our doors, as if something with claws had tried to force its way inside. The marks were fresh and unmistakably real, reinforcing our fears that the hooded figure was more than just a figment of our imagination. Each of us found similar marks, adding to our collective anxiety. It was as if the figure had left a calling card, a physical reminder of its presence. The deep gouges in the wood were a stark contrast to the bright summer morning, making us feel trapped in a nightmare that refused to end. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, and the idea of returning to the festival or even stepping outside seemed terrifying. In the days that followed, our paranoia grew. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside sent us into a panic. We became jumpy, constantly looking over our shoulders and avoiding dark, isolated places. The festival, once a source of joy and excitement, had become a symbol of dread and fear. We stopped discussing our experience with others, fearing they would think we were losing our minds. Even our homes no longer felt safe. Shadows seemed to move on their own, and we often felt an eerie presence in the room with us. The oppressive sense of being watched never left, making it difficult to concentrate on anything. Our friendship strained under the weight of our shared fear, as each of us dealt with the trauma in our own way. We became isolated, each of us haunted by the memory of the hooded figure and the festival that had turned into a nightmare. Desperate for answers, we decided to investigate the old man and the symbols on the tent. We visited the library and searched for any information on ancient rituals or local legends. What we found was both fascinating and horrifying. The symbols were connected to ancient summoning rituals, designed to call forth and control spirits. We realized that we might have unwittingly become part of a dark ritual, one that had unleashed the hooded figure upon us. We tracked down the old man, hoping for some explanation or solution. When we confronted him, his demeanor changed. He seemed amused by our fear and refused to give us any clear answers. His cryptic words and eerie smile only added to our frustration and terror. We left feeling more helpless than ever, knowing that we were dealing with forces beyond our understanding. The investigation only deepened the mystery and made us more aware of the danger we were in. The experience left a lasting impact on all of us. We vowed never to return to the festival, and the thought of it brought a sense of dread that was hard to shake. We became more cautious and superstitious, wary of any strange or unexplained events. The memory of the hooded figure and the terrifying nights haunted our dreams, shaping our actions and decisions long after the festival ended. The ordeal brought us closer in some ways, bonded by a shared trauma, but it also left scars that never fully healed. We each dealt with the fear in our own ways, but the sense of unease remained. The hooded figure, the scratch marks, and the old man's cryptic warnings became a dark chapter in our lives, one that we seldom spoke of but never forgot. The summer festival, once a highlight of the year, had become a haunting memory that would stay with us forever.